Ladies and gentlemen, Talk About Strange is back with yet another very special guest, Mike Patterson from Sasquatch, Ontario. Check him out on YouTube when you're done listening to the podcast here tonight. Mike, we really appreciate you being here, and thank you so much for coming on to Talk About Strange.
Thanks for having me, Ken. I appreciate it.
Yep, believe me, the pleasure's all mine. I wish you were feeling a little better, but hopefully you'll bounce back.
I'm good. I'm a trooper.
That's awesome. So without spending a lot of time, Mike, tell me what prompted you into the realm of the Sasquatch forest people here. What got you started with all this?
At this point, it's funny because you get to a certain point after being involved in years of contact experience, and you start to look back at things, and you have a different perspective on how things possibly happened or evolved. And when I started this, I was spending a lot of my spare time photographing wildlife.
Oh,
I had some good camera gear, there came a point where I had an epiphany about looking for Sasquatch. I don't know where that came from, but at this point, I'm starting to believe that thought could have been planted, considering what we're dealing with, and other things throughout my life, growing up, just experiences and things I've felt, and everything seems to be coming full circle, and I'm connecting a lot of dots of things throughout my life.
That kind of prompts my next question too. I was going to ask if you had any strange experiences as a child, or ghosts or poltergeists or UFOs or whatnot.
Well, there was. I remember my mom telling me, at one point, there was activity, paranormal stuff going on when I was in the crib, and also I remember when I was younger, I had quite a few instances of sleep paralysis.
Hold on, the audio cut out a little bit. You had instances as a child as what?
I had there was activity going on, since I've been in the crib, and growing up, I had quite a few instances of sleep paralysis.
Oh,
which, that's very, very strange. And it's quite common too, from my understanding. And, and current science will give a certain explanation for what they, what they think it is. I have other thoughts on what that is. And I believe it's interdimensional activity going on, and it's not pleasant. It feels negative when it's happening, and you sense a presence in the room. And so I experienced quite a bit of that when I was younger, and that's tapered off to, I can't remember the last time that happened. So
I'm going to guess, like myself, that may have tapered off around your teen years.
I can't quite pinpoint exactly when, but because it's been such a long time. But there's the last incident would it wasn't really sleep paralysis. It would have been more of a dream, and that wasn't that long ago. But I'd rather not get into the details of.
Yep. That's quite all right. And I should say too, anytime you feel like we're getting too far into the layers, you just speak up. I have no problem with that whatsoever, Mike. And I appreciate you saying that. That's enough on that. So I appreciate it. But that's I think there's kind of a common thread with a lot of contactees or folks that have shared some sort of visual sighting or some sort of activity from Sasquatch. They've had earlier dealings with that, and I'm a little bit taken aback by what you said there. That really strikes home with me. That's kind of kind of interesting. So another thing I've noticed too is that the folks I talk to in the Sasquatch field, they're all experts, and they speak in these real definitive terms, which happens to be a big red flag for me. And so, now I have this opportunity to talk to you, and you've had multiple interactions and habituation, if you will. And so I'll ask you to excuse me if I ask too many questions. And this is kind of it's such a complex topic that some of my questions may go, from here to there. But
It's all good.
Just to take things easy and to get things rolling, can you take us back into the woods when you were at the owner's cabin and camping in the tent, and you left the peanut butter and jelly sandwich out? So what the heck was going through your mind there?
Yeah, we used to, put food out for them all the time. Right? There was never an issue. There was never an issue with bears or not even raccoons coming around when this activity was going on. And my tent was, I'd say, probably about 15 feet from the gift tree, where we'd set an audio recorder and food around it. And so the one night, I know what incident you're talking about. Laid out a bunch of peanut butter and jam sandwiches, and I had actually fallen asleep, and I was woken up by the snarling. That was my scariest moment by far. And I honestly, I had to calm my heart. I had to sit there and concentrate on my heart, like slowing it down, because I thought it was going to come out of my chest.
I don't mean to laugh.
Yeah, funny now, but scared the hell out of me.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yeah, that was extremely frightening. And I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't make a sound. And I actually fell asleep after that too. So.
Did you really?
Oh yeah. I didn't have any problem with that. I realized after a bit, okay, this isn't about me. I should be okay.
Thank God. Yeah. You probably didn't know that going into it. That was kind of like the earlier years, wasn't it? When you were first getting, that was one of your first.
I don't remember the date on that, but that was, it was in the thick of it. So. So you were asleep then when they came up, but when Neff was around, or when you knew they were about, did you get an odd, or do you get an odd feeling, or do you sense them being about, and of course, if so, what do you sense? I'm quite sure they were always about, and at this point, I believe I'm watched quite often, pretty closely, but I think that there was instances where sometimes I could feel them. My skin I get that prickly feeling. But then there were times that I wouldn't feel anything, and I'd have a marble bounce off my chest, or from a distance that you knew only came from a couple of feet away. So I knew he was standing right there, and I couldn't feel him. So sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't.
Or did the marble come out of midair, right?
Oh, that was like, we ended up with probably 1,000 marbles between us.
Are you serious? Really?
Oh yeah. After all was said and done, it was I'd go home with a handful each visit, and they use them as sign to show their presence right there. And I'd look, there'd be nothing. I turn my head, I look back, there's a marble sitting on it. Or
it seems that sort of thing seems so innocent, or so I don't know, so kind. If it were a poltergeist, it would be pounding on the door, but this just seems so subtle and so such a nice way to let you know that they're there.
They're very playful and a lot of humor. This is what I've found with, I guess that comes with, an evolved consciousness and expanded consciousness, a lot of humor.
Right on. Right on. Yep.
That's how it seems.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. And that's probably why my family and myself use so much of it. So, oh my goodness, this is great. So, I want you to understand that I fully believe in your findings, Mike. I really do. I go closely by what I feel and what I quit going by my logic side by looking at people and thinking, well, it makes sense, but now. But anyway, I wanted to say that sometimes I'll play the devil's advocate in this. So just to prompt more conversation, please bear with me if I do. I did want to ask you too, though. Do you have you ever witnessed any wildlife in association with Sasquatch, such as raven or crow or anything like, or wolf?
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that. I did have this one instance. I was in Laval at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
I had gone to this. I had to go take care of something. I pulled into this mall parking lot. I pulled under this light standard, one of those really tall light standards
Mm-hmm.
in the parking lot there. And as soon as I got out of my vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
a raven called out. It was a really loud squawk. As soon as I opened my door, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sitting on the light, right above where I just parked, and it called out. So there's this black raven on this light,
Mm-hmm.
and I just, it struck me odd.
Mm-hmm. Caught your attention for sure.
Why is a raven here? A crow, okay, but why is this raven here? And I just had this strange feeling. And then later on, after that, I'd gone for this long drive, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I was up in this higher, I guess, kind of mountainous area.
Mm-hmm.
And I start heading back, and I go to pull onto this highway,
Mm-hmm.
and I look up, and there on a light standard is a white snowy owl. So, so I see this black raven on top of this light, and now I see this white snowy owl on top of this light, just whatever it was, a couple hours later.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what kind of a coincidence is that? So I just found that really odd.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, the snowy owls are real rare in this area. We could see them every few years, but not very often.
Yeah, and I drove past, and it was, I kind of shook my head, and I wish I'd stopped. So I actually pulled off the next exit, did this huge round about the concession there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, it'll be gone by the time I get back. And I come around, and sure enough, it was still there. So I pulled my car over and took a little bit of film footage of it.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. We've just on a personal note, we've had some real interesting experience with raven, both before and after our experiences in the woods. So it doesn't surprise me that you've noticed or had some sort of connection there too, in some way.
Yeah, there's native culture belief that believe Sasquatch to be shapeshifters, and from my experiences, I would not have any doubt with that. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. I was given a story by somebody. I won't mention the name because I don't know if they posted this publicly, or if they wrote this in a book.
Of course.
But they told me this was a couple, and they had heard the young Sasquatch running around on their roof. So they had activity on their property, ongoing activity for a long time. And the husband had gone outside, and he saw, I think he mentioned five youngsters, just little children, little young Sasquatch, and they all raised their arms, turned into crows, and flew off.
Oh.
And he had no reason to to tell some.
Yeah, well, yeah. You can't make this stuff up. I feel certain you're the one that coined the phrase, and don't quote me on this. The closer you get to our forest friends, the more complex. Wasn't it you that said that?
I'm not sure. I don't. If I said something like that, that wasn't the correct wording. I'm not sure, but
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, it's not the correct wording, but I think that you're obviously convinced that these beings are a heck of a lot more than, although flesh and blood, but more than just flesh and blood.
yeah, they. And first, I just want to mention, yeah, I'm a stickler for, what I say and having, being, I'll get people posting on my YouTube videos all the time and saying, well, you said this, and I was like, and I know it's no, I didn't, and I've never said that in my life.
Right.
And I've always been very careful about what I've said, so that way nobody can ever catch me in a contradiction or a lie.
Right. Yeah.
Because,
Well, I didn't. Yeah, I apologize. I hope I didn't.
Oh no! I don't mean it in that way at all, there, Ken. It's all good. I'm just stating how, how I am with regards to that sort of thing. That's all.
Yeah,
I've just been very careful because I know how people are with this subject, and it comes with a lot of ridicule, right? So you got to be really careful.
You really have to be, and even with, obviously, even with the proper wording, you're still gonna experience a lot of. I just can't believe, even to this day, on Facebook, and here you are just trying to share, you're pouring your heart out, and these people just, I don't, of course, I don't understand it. There's a lot of people I don't understand, so I don't want to delve down into that rabbit hole. But what do you think your favorite offering is to your friends? And it's kind of a two-part. I mean, you've offered a whole host of different things, but you've offered food, and you've also offered gifts to them. What are in two different sections? What do you think they receive the best as far as food, and what do you think they receive the best as far as gifts from you?
At this point, I tend to basically mainly just show up with some dark chocolate. It seems to be well received, although a lot of the time it's not touched until after I leave. I remember, I have this a new location I go to. It's still in the same area.
Oh, good.
And I remember I placed dark chocolate on this rock in the forest, and I ended up going out by my car and finding the wrapper underneath the tree beside my car, which was absolutely impossible to get there.
Yeah.
It was, it's kind of, hey, Mike, can you bring some more?
Yeah, that's the kind of the vibe you get off that. Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, I tend to, just show up and alone most of the time. And I do a lot of listening and watching the stars too at this point. I've seen some other things going on up there too. So that.
We'll get into that here in a bit. So I'm guessing you greatly treasure some of the woven gifts that you've received from Neff and family.
Yeah, that was, I remember the first one I got was placed on the rim of my tire on my vehicle there.
Aww.
And I could tell it was from one of the young ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The cottage guy, he had gotten, the ones he were given were a lot more intricate, and a couple of them had marbles woven inside. And you could tell the ones that I was given, they were made from a youngster, I think, quite possibly Ashantia. I've found out since there's Ashantia and Anastasia.
I guess I didn't realize you had that many names and that much interaction.
Yeah, there's just a few of the names I know. I don't I don't know the father's name or the mother's name, brothers, um, just
Right.
Nefertia, Anastasia, Ashantia.
So Nefertia and Anastasia, they're all siblings?
Yep, yep, they're all siblings.
Oh.
Neph and his little sisters.
So are you still able to reach out or have any contact with the same family?
It's been a cold winter, so I don't have the comfort of a warm cottage to
Yep.
reside on, but I've I make visits when I can, and they, it's not like it was before with the vocals, with Neff
Mhm.
all boisterous like that.
Yep.
He's much quieter now, but he does show his presence, and he'll. I've gone in there with a couple of people,
Mhm.
good people that I trust,
Mhm.
and he's done walk past the tents, I mean, close enough where if you reach out, you can grab his ankle, sort of thing, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's funny. He does it on purpose, just to he woke me up with it once, just heavy thuds
Oh,
on the ground as he's walking past.
uh-huh.
That was one time with my nephew, and then I had another buddy of mine, John, with me, and he did it with him too. And
Mhm.
so John got to experience that. And then I had the audio running, so
Mhm.
you don't hear the foot thumps as he's walking past, but
Mhm.
I think it was about 30 seconds later, there's a nice branch snap, maybe 50, 60 feet from the tent.
Awesome.
And,
Awesome.
and I always put my audio out, and they always show their presence on my audio recorders, however sometimes subtle it might be.
Would you agree that they don't really necessarily mind the audio, but just completely avoid the video?
Um, well, they definitely don't mind the audio. As far as video goes, I've used I used to use trail cams, way back in the beginning, and I
Right,
changed.
right. Yeah, knocking on trees days.
Yeah, I changed that, but and then there was after taking those down,
Mhm.
when I started seeing the level of intelligence we were dealing with,
Mhm.
I didn't want to disrespect them, but then it got to a certain point where the cottage guy and myself, we were putting out cameras
Mhm.
as a tool for interaction, not to try and capture
Mhm.
by tricking them in any way. We were being very open and honest about it, and just using it as a tool. Like, here's a camera to play with. If you want to take some pictures, go right ahead. And that just we ended up with dozens of photos, which was absolutely amazing. So that worked really well.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it quite yet, but I was going to ask you about the skull experiments, and if you were familiar with that a little later.
Oh yeah.
I did want to find out too if you've had any additional interactions at home, or otherwise, including like cameras or dreams or odd things happen in your home, without even going into the woods now.
Yeah, it's periodic, and it happens whenever they obviously choose to make the interaction or the contact. And yeah, it doesn't matter where I am.
Interesting.
Yes, it can happen anywhere. And I've also had it on location too, where I've had dreams where I'm on location in the dream, and had things happen there too. So that's been it's strange. It's really surreal to experience that, to have a dream, and the dream is the same as where you're at, but they're present and revealing themselves on a certain level. It's
Sometimes it makes me wonder which is the real reality. And I know that sounds crazy to everybody, and I'm sorry, but it just
not really.
sometimes it makes you wonder. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm trying to speak to everyone, but it's not easy. When you're dealing in this realm, it's just I've had things happen that were I mean, right here, you could knock on it and see it and touch it and feel it, and you try to tell everyone about it, and they think you're nuts. So this. there's some things can change our perspective, in our world.
And when you look and break it down into a quantum aspect, there it's really just empty space. There are no walls.
Right.
And,
Right.
they understand this, and they understand how it all relates and how to manipulate it, and they can walk through walls.
Absolutely. I really don't think they're trapped in the same time zone that we understand linear time.
You broke up just a little bit there, Ken.
Oh, I said I really don't think they're trapped into our linear time as we have been led to think it is.
Yeah, no, not at all. No, they have a, I sometimes explain to people, how they'll say we use 10% of our brain or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I just say, think of them as using 100%, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is how they come across to me, their intelligence level and their understanding of energy and how it all works.
Yeah, it's I hate to say all of them because I'm sure they're all as well diverse as we are, but I couldn't agree more. I think they're on a different level than we can even comprehend. Would you say there's more sightings now than ever, Mike, or do you think it's just the computer age, or do you think the communication factor? Do you think it's kind of a combination? Do you think
Oh, that's an easy one for me. They're revealing their existence. They've shown me that, and
good.
Yeah. This is what's going on, and I see how they're doing it. They're doing it collectively as they do it individually. And I've had a couple of instances, one a dream and one a vision, one asleep and one awake, where I was given an image, and the one dream wasn't just an image, that was something else, but the one that I was awake, they showed me an image of dozens of them walking across an open meadow in the same direction, and I had experienced, it was actually the first time I'd experienced feeling words, which was really strange, but there was such a clarity with it that there was no question as to what was being conveyed, and it was just short and sweet. It said, "Soon your people will know." And that was about just shy of 2 years now. Wow. I think we're almost about 2 years. So
really?
Yeah, and I'm aware of other information that I don't let on about. I'm quite convinced there's, this is a big reveal happening right now, and I have my thoughts on why, and it's not pretty, but there's some big stuff going on in the background. And
well, let's keep moving that, because I definitely want to get into that a lot deeper. So let's move into the strange section here and talk about strange. And before we get into the nit and grit, where do you believe they originated from, if you were to guess?
If I were to guess, or
it's kind of a thrown out question, I know.
I just have to laugh, or what I've been what I've learned through somebody else that has. I don't know as far as where they come from originally.
It's kind of an open-ended question for sure.
Yeah, it's that's a tough one for me to answer. I believe they're basically terrestrial. They live here, but definitely I don't think they're confined to here. And that's that could be understood with certain documented cases of Sasquatch being seen coming in and out of UFOs.
You bet. That's interesting you say that. Good. That covers another question coming up. So that's you believe it's entirely possible that they they've been here since long before us, which may help explain why their DNA is so similar. Maybe we're an offspring of them.
Yeah, it's quite possible. They seem to be, or we seem to be possibly a dumbed down version, right? Hairless, weak, and full of ego.
Yeah.
But these guys are built for this earth. They're built to withstand. They have no problems leaving footprints in -20. And I've felt their body heat from things they've held, and I see the oil that comes off of their skin. So that alludes to retaining, good source of body heat for withstanding extreme temperatures. And I guess they obviously must be able to regulate their temperature very well. With all that hair, in the hotter temperatures and that, I don't know how they do that, but they definitely seem to be built for this earth much better than we are.
Even Meldrum would agree that their gait is far superior to anything that they just seem, like you said, so much more capable of traversing this planet than we are. I don't know. We seem to be a little upright and a little fragile and a little gun happy, for that matter.
Yeah, the way some of the trackways that document from Nefertia, his step basically crosses over. So not just a tightrope walk, but I see it cross over slightly sometimes. It's like, how the hell can you walk like that?
That is brilliant. I've always called it inline, but it's actually almost crossing over. Yeah, that's really.
Or inline, however you want to describe it. And I remember one night I was trying to figure out. He left a trackway. I think it was his left foot. So I'd see his left foot, and there was about 5. This was in the snow, and there was about 5 feet, and then another left foot, 5 feet, another left foot, and this went on for a little bit, and I'm like, what the hell? And there was no impact in the snow, so I'm like, well, he can't be jumping. There's no impact here. It took me a little bit to figure all this out, right? And I realized after a while he's choosing to leave his footprints. He's just messing with me. He's full of humor. He just loves to mess with us. And, I can just imagine this.
I have to think he was laughing while he did that.
Oh yeah, I can just imagine. And
it's just brilliant.
Oh yeah, it's just. But it's like,
I knew good and well you were going to find it.
All the prints were left for us purposely.
Of course, yeah.
He would sometimes leave 2 or 3. I'd document them. I'd mess them up so nobody would come walking down the road, and then go back in the cottage, come back out later, and he'd have another one sitting there waiting for us.
Well, in that time you guys pulled up and you popped open the trunk and you went about doing some things and pulled this and that out, and boof, there was this single footprint. Remember? Yeah,
that was a 17-inch. That was, I don't know if that was maybe Neff's older brother or something. But Nefertia's foot was 12 by 5 inches. I think it was just a little bigger by the time I'd left. It looked about a 1/4 inch bigger, but I didn't have enough time to really get enough documentation to really get a solid grasp on the size. But yeah, when I showed up for that one visit, there was I had my trunk open, and I'd brought in a load of gear into the cottage. I come back out, and there's one single 17-inch footprint in the snow right there, and there was 2 hand-woven gifts, one placed inside my camera bag and one placed on a snowmobile, the cottage guy snowmobile. So we were both left
one for each of you.
When they gave to one, they always gave to both of us.
That just seemed to have the ability to reach right inside your heart.
You're gonna have to repeat that, Ken. Your voice
Oh, I was just gonna. I was just saying
Your voice broke right up.
Oh yeah, and maybe I'm not speaking loud. It just seems like they have the ability to reach right down into your heart, and I don't know, touch us, or at least me, in some sort of kind, uh, incomparable way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And it wasn't anything you were like talking loud enough or anything. It was just the connection. That's all. So.
Oh yeah. Okay, gotcha.
But oh yeah, no, definitely. They're reaching out to us. They want to connect with us. They're trying to wake us up. You know.
Well, there's been countless eyewitnesses now, and it seems to be a tremendous amount of hand wringing from the authorities about proving their existence. How do you think that would change their existence here, if in our current world? How do you think the average American, and I mean that very specifically, would respond to such information? Let's say it all comes out, and I mean, it seems we're having a little trouble here, just dealing with our own diverse cultures, especially here in the last year.
Personally, I think we need a good shakeup of truth, considering what's going on in this world right now. I have my own thoughts about what's happening, but as far as I see them exposing themselves as they do individually, as a baby step process. They don't want to overwhelm. They don't want to freak us out too much all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And they know what they're doing. They're methodical in their approach. And I noticed this through my interactions visiting that cottage. It was like every visit was something new. It was just
a little bit more each time, huh?
Yeah, it was always an expansion. Whatever would happen, he would never go back on that. He was just constantly expanding on what we were being shown.
So you have your own views on this. What I mean, let's say for a moment, let's imagine everyone is aware of the Sasquatch people. What's the most important aspect you'd like to get out of this or see out of that situation? Let's just fast forward and say, okay, here's, it's been a year now and it's been accepted. Where are you now, Mike?
Well, what I see them doing is just a constant, as they're doing right now, but I believe they're going to continue to show more and more. And I believe there's going to be involvement with other types of beings as well, because there isn't just Sasquatch. And in my opinion, I think you got to have your head in the sand if people can't see that, there's some pretty big information and stuff being covered up here. It's a no-brainer. Sasquatch are written throughout history, and there's tens of thousands of sightings and documented cases, and so many people having experiences and ongoing interactions, and science is just sitting on their ass, twiddling their thumbs. That's not, I guess, obviously that's not the right way to put it, but they're pretty lax about it, in my opinion, seeing as it's the biggest discovery in our entire history. And when we have one funded scientist in the entire subject, I think. One funded scientist, and it's like, doesn't anybody question this? As Meldrum would say, isn't that kind of dubious? I just, I just have to shake my head, and it's like, wake up, wake up, everybody. We're having the wool pulled over our eyes here. And, this is a major discovery, and it's being suppressed, and it has been for ages. There's been stigma built around it. It's, which it's not as bad as it was when you used to mention either ETs, UFOs, or Sasquatch. Ridiculed, laughed at, mocked. And, people would think you're nuts. And that just shows right there the stigma that's been purposely built around it.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, and at this point, more and more people are becoming aware and awake and seeing that, no, this stuff is real, and a lot of the stuff we've been told isn't real is real.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I think there's people in power. They don't want our consciousness awakened,
Mm-hmm.
and they fear us as humanity waking up,
Mm-hmm.
because we're all tucked into this nice little box and
Yep. Yep.
feed, feeding this monster that's destroying the planet. And our forests are being decimated, the ocean's poisoned, the air's poisoned. There's geoengineering going on, and there's a lot of evil in this world. And this is why the Sasquatch are coming at. They're waking us up to all this dark stuff that's being done to humanity.
Good. Thank God. I couldn't agree with you more than, I try not to dwell in it because, once I do, it makes my blood boil, but it's so true. And it's I rarely use the word pathetic, but do you think it's possible that the forest industry may be part of the reason why our forest friends aren't recognized?
Forest industry, mining.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I want to see it all shut down. I know that's going to affect a lot of families and that, but hey, we're going to have to come up with some solutions then, because we got to.
Yeah, I think it would just be a shift in job change. I think you'd go from working in the oil industry to working in the solar industry. So what?
Yeah, I think I think the technology's been there for a long time, and again, that's also being suppressed.
You bet.
And we've been warned about the military-industrial complex for
Yep.
decades. And
Yep.
look at it now, right? U.S. is a war machine, and people are well aware of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's we just got to keep waking people up and exposing this, and sooner or later things have to shift.
Brilliant. Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I was going to say, I know you've seen colored orbs and lights move about, and I was going to ask if you thought there was any sort of a Sasquatch slash extraterrestrial connection, but I don't think I need to ask you that. I think we've got that one covered pretty well.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a connection there, and I can't see why there wouldn't be, considering their consciousness and from my understanding of all the stuff I've heard of, the ET phenomena. It's all very similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's all related.
Yep.
I can't see how it cannot be related, and which would be another huge reason to suppress this from the masses. It's the governments have been covering this stuff up for decades. We've had Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Defense Minister.
Mm-hmm.
He's come right out and spoken openly about this, and you don't get much more decorated than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's a stand-up guy, and he's just speaking his truth. And there's been literally hundreds of high-ranking officials that have gotten up and sworn on oath about all this stuff going on.
Really, yeah.
Yeah. So.
And you're not talking just UFOs. You're talking Sasquatch in Canada.
Well, I was referring to UFO ET.
Okay. Yep.
But like I mentioned, I can't see how it's not related at all. Especially, some of there has been documented cases of Sasquatch and ET UFOs all
multiple. In fact, Kwani Lapsaritis, I think, would agree. Well, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the 1975 report from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers about the. They actually put out a pamphlet and a brochure about the acceptance of Sasquatch, and
I am aware of that.
I'm a real believer in that everyone has their own opinion, and I think it's only fair to let everybody share their own opinion. And I'm not much on mentioning names and so on, but I think it's only right for us just to touch on real quick your opinion on all the finger pointing from David. Paulides, the 411 guy that with the books and the videos? Are you familiar?
Pilates, David Pilates, yeah.
Pilates, there you go.
From my understanding, he doesn't pertain anything to Sasquatch specifically. You know,
Okay, good.
that's from my understanding. He just gives the facts.
Okay.
You know, some people might, think he's alluding to that or take that as probable cause for Sasquatch being in relation to that. But we know so little about this, and especially if there are other malevolent beings that have similar capabilities. If they were shapeshifters, why not shapeshift into a Sasquatch and give somebody a bad rap? Who knows? We don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe there are some rogue Sasquatch, some bad seeds. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, just like people, I'm sure they're pretty complex.
Yeah, I don't really, know the full extent of only what I've experienced myself and through what others have experienced that I had contact with. And in all those people, it's pretty much standard with, similar activity, benevolent, and all having positive experiences.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure you heard recently Claudia Ackley is suing the state of California for not recognizing Sasquatch as a species. I don't know how that's going to work out, but it seems like the veil is thinning a bit.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that with Claudia. I don't really follow too much in this subject anymore.
Yep.
But I was definitely aware that she was pursuing something like that. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of that.
Sure. Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen there? One of the things that we touched on earlier was your camera, and there was. Are you familiar with the skull experiments from '93 to '98? There was some.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Really? Do you think that's kind of the same thing that? One of the photos that Neff or somebody put on your camera, there were all sorts of different impressions. I thought they were actual literal snapshots, but I remember at one point you were like, "Wait a minute, that's inside the cabin there," or I don't know if you said that, but there were a couple of shots where it was inside of the cabin. You could see the paneling or the identified walls in the background, right?
Oh yeah, you're probably referring to that crazy blonde-haired individual with paneling inside. And I knew when I was posting that picture that I was just gonna get a wall of ridicule with that. And at the time it was real, so I thought, I don't care, And I remember the cottage guy going, I don't know, he's like, he knew what was gonna happen if I posted that. And I thought, it's, to hell with it. It's real. So, they put it there. That's all that matters to me. And what was funny, we don't know where that picture was taken because it didn't come from inside his cottage.
I mean, the background would indicate some sort of interior background of the inside of his cottage.
It wasn't the inside of his cottage, though. That's the thing. We don't know where it was, where that photo originated from, except that they put it on the camera, but it didn't match the interior of his cottage.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That makes it, the plot thickens. That makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, and there was photos appearing on the camera. It was a developed process. The first started up by the gift tree and during the daytime, and then progressed down to in front of the cottage at night, and eventually ended up on the kitchen table inside the cottage. And then even to a point where I'm sitting at the two of us are sitting at the table, and the camera's within arm's reach, and I keep checking it, and pictures are appearing.
It's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, I remember my last visit. I think it was my last couple of visits or something to the cottage there. The back viewfinder, I had asked for the little one there if she would leave her fingerprints,
Mm-hmm.
The two prints appeared on the viewfinder on the camera, and cottage guy pointed it out because we were standing there in the kitchen, and he goes, look, and we look at the camera, and the prints they had just appeared, and there was condensation on them, and we watched it dry up in front of our eyes and leave the oily marks.
That is just unbelievable.
Yeah, there was.
Meanwhile, that happened while you were sitting there in front of your eyes. Yeah, although you didn't see anything.
With photos appearing on the camera, yeah, the fingerprints. Well, we didn't witness them appear, but we witnessed them probably a second or two after it happened, and the condensation dry up, from that moment.
It's just mind-boggling, and I mean, just for you to sit there and witness that is just.
Ken, I got to see so much, paranormal type activity that
Mm-hmm.
it's become normal for me to experience this now. It barely phases me. Although, the telepathy incidents have been, there's only been a few of those, and when they happen, they still kind of shock me, catch me off guard. So I'm always a little slow to respond, right? So I'm
right.
shocked. So
yeah. So that's still happening.
Well, I haven't had, I haven't experienced that for a while, but
yeah. Mike, have you considered writing a book at all, or?
Yeah, I started one a while back. I shelved it after a while. I just didn't feel motivated, with all the BS I was going through with. So I just, I lost my motivation there for a while. But yeah, I will definitely finish up writing a book. I'm sure a lot of people would be interested to read.
I think you're right. I think a lot of us would buy it like tonight if we could.
Getting into something like this, it's difficult. You do get a lot of finger pointing and people accusing you of, you're just doing it for the money. And, that was always another thing that held me back. And at this point, I'm kind of have this screw you attitude. That's never been my motive. And I know within my heart that my motive has always, been, my intentions have been pure and my motive has been pure. So, yeah, I've left that guilt at the door at this point.
Good for you. You got to do what's right for you. I don't think any of us would mind if you fed your family from telling the truth. I mean, what could be what's wrong with that? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think Neff would applaud you.
I think, as long as it's not your motive, that's all, right? If money's your motive, reasons.
Well, your motive would be to get your truth out. So,
the truth and helping others understand and just growing the numbers of people awakening their consciousness. And this is what we need to do. We need to help others learn and expand their consciousness and try and possibly help some of these others turn around who are hunting them, trying to harm them, and
right,
that are just out to make a name for themselves, trying to bring one to the table for science or something, which I'm trying. That these are people. They really are. They are people. They have families and names and language, and they're just a little different,
Yeah. Kind of like Herman Munster. They walk into a room and scare everyone away, but meanwhile they're the most gentlest. Yeah, I almost interviewed somebody that believed in kill for science, and but I really don't think it works like that. I think they have been shot and killed before. There's no doubt in my mind, and I think they're, all that evidence is whisked away, just like the just like someone turning in DNA for testing. Well, it was contaminated and it was a bear, you know. And you just see too much of that. Where I don't think the authorities. I don't know if the world is quite ready for it as of yet. You know?
No, I believe they are fallible, and I also believe that there are people, this is pretty dark. I believe there are people in power who are trying to eliminate them from this earth. They don't want them here. They don't want us to know about them. They don't want our consciousness expanded. And this is,
would that help explain some of the wildfires in the West?
I've seen a little bit about that with, some of the stuff really didn't make sense. How, I've seen some of these homes where there's nothing left, even the stones, and there's trees still standing. So yeah, that doesn't make any sense there. It seems to be a military weapon of some sort, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Have you tried this? A couple of last questions before we wrap it up for you. I know it's getting late. Have you, one of my favorite things that I've ever done, in fact, I'm sitting with a rock here right now, was taking an acoustic guitar out and play into our area that we went to yesterday and just playing music for them, specifically for them, and just playing my own music that I felt like I don't, for some reason, I don't think they would appreciate too heavy of rock and roll, but the acoustic, there's a handful of acoustic pieces that they really seemed, and in fact, the last time I did, a rock flew up and hit a branch very nearby and fell down in front of my feet, maybe just 10 foot away. I just thought it was brilliant. I just wondered if you've tried that, and if not, I want to encourage you to do so.
Well, I wouldn't be so quick to, with the rock thing, as far as the loud rock and roll stuff. I have a studio with some friends of mine. We play music, and we've had activity happen inside the room several times. And,
really? Well, that's good.
Oh yeah, and we're loud, so somebody seems to be enjoying it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Is that the room that you filmed all the orbs in not too long ago?
That was there has been orbs filmed in there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As far as playing other stuff, I've brought a didgeridoo and made a feeble attempt at playing that thing while on location, but so I'm sure they appreciate that sort of thing.
I think so. I really got that impression. In fact, when we finally settled into the tent later, another rock hit the tent right at head high, and it was a real wake up call.
I think there a lot of people. There's some misconception about rock throwing, and a lot of people, I think they take it as an act of aggression.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I think in some cases, though, if you're out hunting with a gun and or fishing in their front yard, or in their land,
yeah.
I think in light of that, I think they're quite kind. I mean, we're walking around in their living room and their bedroom and their bathroom, and with our guns. And the fact that they don't retaliate, and how would we take it if we were sitting in our living room and someone walked into our place with a gun,
Well, they're still walking around our living rooms, not with guns, but they.
That's brilliant. That's so true. I just heard a story not long ago where that's exactly what happened. Matter of fact, the guy did grab his gun and run down the hallway, and it ran down the hallway and shut the door at the end of the hallway, and it was gone. Just disappeared out of thin air.
Yeah, that's definitely something they're able to do. I was living with a buddy of mine for a couple of years during this, and he was a real skeptic when I first moved in. I'd known him for at least a couple of decades, and as my buddy Kyle and I told him, I said, just some things might start happening here, and he just he's a good natured, good humored guy. He laughs a lot. Um, I remember one of the first things they did was, wasn't the first, but one of the first, rifled his credit cards and stuff in his wallet, just kind of pulled everything out and shoved it back in while he was sleeping, sitting on his dresser. And, there's nobody else in the house, just me, right?
Yeah.
And, it was about 3 weeks after that they finally left him a footprint. And then after that, he got physical contact, he got telepathy. They gave him a visual walking across the room in front of him.
Wow.
Shaking the tree in the backyard, turning all his cigarettes upside down in his cigarette pack. And they don't like smoking. They don't
Pranksters.
like Oh yeah. Yeah, so by the time I left there, his perspective on reality was completely changed.
But it's just so whimsical the way they do it. But once again, baby steps for him. They started out here and then graduated to this and then moved into that, and and now he's a believer.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to him on the phone the other day, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, anything else happened there since I left?" And he goes, "Not really, except his mom came to visit him, which was interesting."
Oh, has she passed on?
Oh yeah. But that was another thing. So he was pretty wowed by that too.
Well, maybe they opened up some sort of door for her to come through. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's definitely had some experiences. So.
pretty well. Mike, have I internet connected? Okay. Have I missed any key questions here tonight, or can we do this again sometime?
Oh yeah, sure, we can do it again sometime. I just I'll just relay a couple of things. Like I know. A lot of people question those vocalizations, and there will be some analysis done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure when it'll be done, but it will be done, and it'll be proper bioacoustic analysis. It's really interesting to see the reactions from some people, the denial that's gone on, and I'm talking from people involved in this subject who should know better, that have some authority or authoritative positions in this subject. I won't say names, and they basically called it a hoax. Meanwhile, there's some of those vocals are extremely extraordinary, and there's dialogue that comes with them, and there's hours of surrounding context, and it's all just shoved under the rug and ignored. And Nefertiti's foot was laser scanned by science, and they know it's real, and it's basically been left at that. No results posted, and and I see a lot of this in this subject, and and this needs to stop. We need to open the doors and bring this truth out, because the more of us that open up and speak about our experiences and all the paranormal stuff that comes with it, it's only going to help bring this truth out to the front more, because it is being suppressed and ignored by science at a certain level. Sasquatch consciousness is basically being shoved under the rug, and the entire existence of Sasquatch, they're already discovered, and and this has happened a long time ago. Their truth is it's being suppressed. This is a cover-up, and if anybody doesn't see that, I'm sorry, you're asleep.
Yep.
It's time to wake up. Time to wake up. It's
But yeah, I guess I didn't realize. It sounds cliche. How does that make you feel? I guess I didn't realize that there were people in the Sasquatch realm that would that also think that you're hoaxing all that, which I just think is absurd. The average commoner, which we deal with a lot here. Most of these folks, they eat at fast food restaurants. So I'm not surprised, and I don't. There's a certain folk that I don't try to convince anything about any of this with, but I guess I didn't realize, and I can tell by the way you were trying to convey your message about that, with the audio is being analyzed, that you kind of need that to be proven or verified, because of some of the folks in the Bigfoot Sasquatch community. And what really bothers me is everyone that so many folks, I think I said this earlier, in that realm, they've been doing this for years, so now they're an authority. And the Sasquatch, they like this and they like that, and they don't like this and they don't. I can't stand hearing that kind of thing, because these people that how can they even consider calling you a hoax if they don't have any proof of your being a hoax? How could you even come up with hoaxing those sort of? I think one guy said that you slow down the voice, and it's real simple. You just slow it down. Really? With
dialogue, back and forth. It's, well, my voice is still normal, I guess. Yeah, that's quite the trick. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see somebody figure that out. No, well, nobody has at this point. There's been some feeble attempts at, people yelling marble into the microphone, or breathing backwards, and but Nefertia, he's got quite the velocity with inhale, exhale vocalizations that would put any human in a coughing fit, really. If some of the stuff, I could post some audio and say, okay, let's see you do that, and just sit back and smile, knowing that no, this will never happen. So
the last gentleman I talked to on a story from he said he was camping and sitting by the fire by himself. And Mike, if you're listening to this, you'll know exactly I'm talking about you. But he said that he heard this scream that went extremely high and then down very low and into a growl. And he said on its way down, he said the lung capacity was so huge. He said it had to have been larger than a cattle, just the way he was trying to, ground shaking sort of, which I know you've felt before.
Yeah, definitely the range in their voice, their lung capacity, they're just Nefertia with his up and down, the way he can bounce around, very versatile in their vocalization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been imitating him around our house for an awful long time. We typically inhale talk to make it happen. It sounds like sometimes he'll do that.
It's funny. I've heard of quite a few people mention that. How many people are around North America are walking around their house yelling my name.
Quite a few, including us. I want you to know, quite a few. Yeah. I just love it. It's so there's something very endearing about the whole way it was like he was so happy you were there.
Neff is a character. He's definitely he is one. Before we learned what his name was, which he gave during one visit after I think it was months of requesting it. Mm-hmm. We used to call him Mr. Funny, because of his sense of humor. The early days, he was Mr. Funny.
Mr. Funny. That's so cute. And really only a 12-inch foot, so he wasn't like a giant. He was probably younger. He was probably not full grown, right? Would you agree?
Oh, no, he's definitely not. I estimated him. I remember there's one footprint I did. I put my footprint beside his, and I estimated him roughly 7+ feet, maybe 300 to 400 pounds, in that range somewhere.
Yeah, when you took your boot and sock off and you put your foot in the snow next to it, right?
Yeah. I figured he's in that range somewhere. So
Some of these guys get pretty big. So I wonder where his parents are, and obviously there's a whole clan in that region. Like,
I think, well, I think the big guy, is quite possibly, or likely his father, and
mm-hmm.
he was witnessed visually outside the cottage window by the cottage guy's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Him and I were on another part of the property. I think that was February 2013,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and he was maybe about 150 feet from the cottage, and he, I think it was one of those poof, I'm here moments.
Mm-hmm.
And, told her take the picture, and she got what she got and went to step outside to get a clear shot, and he was gone.
Of course, yeah.
And that was only within a maybe 2-3 seconds to get out the door. And I went. I remember at the time I said, well, let's not go up there. Sure, I wanted to see footprints. That would have been amazing. But I was like, let's not go up there. I don't want to piss them off.
Mm-hmm.
We got a, amazing thing going here.
Yeah.
Just show some respect.
Yep.
And he never showed his print again till my very last visit. And
oh, really?
Yeah, he knew it was my last visit. I'm quite convinced there. But anyways, when we'd gone back the next week after that sighting, and we recreated that photo, and I stood in the same spot. You can barely see me in comparison. So he was estimated, she said he was hunched, and he's about 11 feet plus in that photo hunch. So he's probably, 11, 12 feet tall.
Yeah, that's the photo through the trees, right? I think he's squatting or sitting down, maybe.
No, he's just bent at the knees.
Oh boy.
Yeah, he's just bent at the knees. Huge upper torso, bent at the knees, and I believe he actually showed up in a dream of mine too. About 15 months after the situation had dissolved, and within days, I had a new location come to me through YouTube, dropped in my lap from a stranger. It was like, okay, well, that's quite the coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
He appeared in a dream, and I shook his hand, his finger, because his hand was so huge. And and I remember looking up at his face and not wanting to let go. And he had that, understanding look on his face. And when I let go, he took one step, disappeared into the forest. I woke up, and then. Next thing I know, I'm back making visits.
Oh, that's brilliant, Mike. Can you let them know ahead of time? Can you telepath to them that you're coming up Friday night at 9:00 and you're going to be at this specific location? Do you think that would help, or have you tried that?
I don't think I have to. They always seem to be there whenever I show up. Oh,
that's brilliant. Oh, you lucky son of a gun.
They just, it depends how much they want to reveal, how much they want to show their presence. But they always at least let me know through the audio.
Oh, that's great.
And they're quite blatant about it. I've learned to discern even a lot of the most subtle stuff that they do. Mm-hmm. Audio has been just an amazing tool for me to learn their behavior and how they interact with us. And I recommend it as a great tool for interacting and learning to understand how they work.
You bet. In fact, with my squatching friend Jim, we've decided this year no more cameras. We're using audio only, and what we planning to do is set up one set of tents here at our main campsite, which we get quite a bit of activity at, and then just go out to another satellite stop and just pitch a tent for one night in the middle of this swampy area. Not in the swamp, but next to it, and audio only, and just see, obviously no, we don't bring any. I don't even like to carry cameras with me anyway. I've always kind of been against it with this hunch, but yeah, it's good to hear you solidify that for us, or kind of firm up our theory.
I'm always honest with them, and I tell them what I'm doing. I tell them what the device does, and I give them a little example. I show them, and sure. I tell them I love to hear their voice. They have beautiful voices. I just absolutely incredible voices to hear them. And I tend to use two audio recorders. I'll put one, at a distance that's close enough for them to approach comfortably, and then I'll put one closer to me to.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I think trying to dupe them is just a complete waste of time and kind of not very respectful either. I think I think that we have these little thermal cameras, which, you can kind of pick up heat signatures. And I know that's kind of a layman's term, but I think they really have the ability to, you can't put something out in the woods that they don't see or know about.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing I found. It doesn't matter where you try to hide something. They know where it is.
Yeah.
And they would show us that all the time. You just try to tuck something away, and they would be tapping the microphone or tossing things at it, and it's just showing you that, hey, we know it's here.
Yeah. In fact, my buddy Jim left a recorder out at one point, and you hear these footsteps come up to this thing, and you hear him go right up to the mic. He gets right up close to it and starts sniffing it. And then you hear him go as if he's kind of upset about about it being there, Yeah. So I think, but I don't think at that point, I don't think he was telling anyone what he was doing. He was just putting it out to see what he'd get, So I think when we start making it a little more clear, of course, I always announce all the peanut butter and all the gifts we probably announce. And we did get a feather on our last visit out. We left some peanut butter and they left a feather for us. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I find honesty is the best route with these guys. Just completely open. You can't lie to them. You really can't.
Right. Honesty, maybe the best thing for everyone, I guess.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation, Mike. I could go on all night, and I don't want to stop if you don't want to stop, but I know it's 10:40 now or close to it, so you're probably ready for some rest. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll give it just a few more minutes.
Oh, good.
There's there was the visits with Chris Munch too, which
have you heard from Chris lately, or have you been in touch with him?
Yeah, actually I was in touch with him recently, and he was happy to hear from me. And Chris he's a really super nice guy. I really enjoyed his company.
It really comes across that way, and again, it seems like the Sasquatch really accepted him quite handily. So he's he's like, my theory, like I told you, if they do, that there's something to be said for that. But even the marbles dropping on him, and so I'm so glad that you remained in touch with him. That's good to hear.
Yeah, he's he got to experience quite a few things. He's a very humble guy, and it was really cool also to. He allowed me to do a little bit of interviewing with him, and I managed to capture a marble dropping out of thin air from above us, in between us, as he was speaking. Right. So
I saw that. I've watched that video many times in slow motion and stop frame, and he's just chatting about, and you're standing behind the camera, and he's like, "Did you see that?" He reaches down and picks up a marble, and he's like, "I swear to God, it just fell out of the sky."
Yeah, and he witnessed it inside the cottage too, right in front of his face, and so there was. He also had images imposed on his camera. I remember.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we hadn't witnessed this before. That it seemed like his camera was stuck because he left the camera on the table. We all went outside, come back in. He's got this image on there, and so he's scrolling, and it seems to be stuck. And then we realized that he had the same image. I think it was 14 or 15 times. So that was
the same image.
Yeah, we hadn't witnessed anything like that before. So that was pretty bizarre.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, he probably still has the images. And wasn't he missing some numbers as well, or was that a different? It seemed like there were some missing photos. Like, it went from 238 to 242 or something. There were some images on the camera that may have come up missing. I may be mixing that up with another story.
I'm not sure. I know that something similar happened with myself. At one point I was getting images on the camera and I'm counting them, and then I'd come back in later and there would be less. And I go, what the hell is going on here? Were they putting images on and taking them off? That happened a couple of times. They were showing me they could put them on and they could take them off too.
Gosh darn it! It's just I know you've gotten to a point where you're pretty much used to all this, but holy cow, it just it's mind-boggling. I love it. I can't get enough of it. Who better than to befriend than someone with these with this pure heart, with the ability to do things that are unconscionable to us.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, and it kind of, I'm sorry my family doesn't really accept it. It kind of freaks them out a bit. They don't understand it. They think I'm going to disappear one day, or so they they see it as something negative, right?
Really?
Yeah, which I hope one day that'll change. And there's more to this story that I haven't spoken or opened up about at this point. But I'm sure it's all going to come out in the future. And, this is much bigger than I think.
More to the story that you haven't talked about yet.
Well, there's this whole thing going on with all of us, I think, is much bigger than we could imagine. I think it's absolutely massive, beyond comprehension. I think all that's going to come out in the future at some point. But
you think the pimple's getting ready to pop? Do you?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably pretty close. Yeah.
Well, it's about damn time, is all I can tell you. It's you probably don't pay too much attention. Hopefully, you don't to the United States, but it's it's getting pretty violent, and there's a lot of there's a lot of greed going on, which has really changed a lot of things around here. It just, I'm hoping that with the help of our Arcturian friends and Sasquatch and the whole group of it, we've got a lot of us that work to ground the energy here to the planet. I also believe, speaking of music earlier, that in I think it was the 40s, there was a German scientist that changed the standard tuning from 448 or from 432 to 448. Have you heard about that? Yeah, look it up. So just search 432 later tonight, Mike. That's another part of the.
That's what I tune my guitar to.
You tune your guitar to 432?
I've always tuned it to 432. It just felt natural to me, and me and the guys I play with, that's what we always play in 432. 440 to me was always just never felt right.
Buddy, I just have more respect for you by the minute.
It's, standard tuning. Yeah, I can't understand it. 432 is more. It's a natural. It just resonates, right?
Yeah, it certainly does resonate, and there's a reason for that. And years ago, I put out a couple of chakra balancing CDs and sold quite a few of them, but they were all tuned at 440, and hindsight's 2020. I think I should redo them all down to 432. And it's not very balancing when you're balancing out of tune, is it?
No. I think there's been quite a bit done on this planet to deter us from becoming more aware of and more in tune with who we actually are.
I couldn't agree more, Mike. It's in every facet, whether it's diet, or what they, in the States here, they call it medicine. I call it chemicals. There's the tuning of music. There's the television. So they're brainwashing through these media channels. It's in schools here. It's layer after layer after layer, whether it's, and now they're talking about censoring the internet, and
it's being done purposely, this.
By all means.
Oh yeah, it's all done purposely, and I believe we're at the end game. We are at that pivotal point, and again, this is why Sasquatch are revealing their existence. A good part of it. We have to awaken here, or else we're in trouble.
Yeah, but I can tell you, there's a lot of people that if they you can't just go out and tell everybody in the United States right now that there's aliens or Sasquatch among us, because dang it, they're going to run out and start shooting.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, I think there's some big stuff coming down the pipe, and I think the world needs a good shake-up right now.
Well, if it happened from within, then they wouldn't feel that way. So if the Sasquatch are working, and perhaps you are working toward opening the minds of the, and I don't really blame the masses for thinking the way they are, because it's been a brilliant covert
long-term conditioning.
Oh yeah, it's been really smart. Just with all the different aspects involved, there's different legs to all of it. It's been very, very well orchestrated, but so I don't really blame the average big game watchers. Everyone's more concerned about the game than anything, but at the same time, there something would have to change from the inside before anything outside of this knock on wood reality could change. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're always under the guise of this threat of nuclear war. What if it was funny, a buddy of mine said this to me, what if we learn that, well, that'll never happen because the ETs will never allow it to happen, and they've already shown that.
Mike, they've shown it multiple times. They've shut down multiple silos.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll let that allow that to happen.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure of it. Because then you're starting to change. That changes time and other planetary systems, and that now you're interfering with their world. They can't do anything if we're just down here shooting each other. But when we start messing with that ripples into other realms, I do believe, and that they can have a say-so over.
I can even just imagine, the military weapons testing that's going on. Who knows what they have going on with the technology we're at today. That we're not told about. That
oh, sure.
Yeah, the electro impulse weapons, and just this invisible stuff that we don't see, hear, feel, but is happening, or HARP, or the manipulation of weather and this, and there's so much going on that's
right.
Sinister, and they're just messing with everything, our stratosphere, and and our air, and oh my God, it's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, don't get me started on chemtrails now. We're going to go down another rabbit hole here. So it's just it boggles the mind. Like I said, there's so many different layers to this. There's just so many things that need to be revamped or changed.
Yeah, the whole political system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No.
Like everything that has been created to conform
Mm-hmm.
and and have us feed this monster, you know.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think we are at a time of change, of big change, and we're very close. And I think a lot of stuff is going to start revealing itself that is going to blow people's minds. And
Yeah.
you know, this whole aspect of higher consciousness and beings revealing their existence that have been watching us and interacting with many of us.
You bet.
I feel like this year is, you know, something's going to happen.
Really?
I don't know. I just have a feeling this is, you know, we're only in February, and
Yep.
I don't know. The way the things are pressing right now, it seems to me this dark agenda is really pushing their game at this point, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think the light is going to fight back just as hard, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I feel the same way, and I hope it the sooner the better, I guess.
Yeah.
So very good, Mike. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Talk About Strange, and this has been a great conversation. I could go on forever with you, and I thank you so much. And anytime you want to play some music, you got to let me know. I'm down for that.
And no problem, and my pleasure being on here, Ken. I appreciate talking to you too. It's been fun.
That's very nice to hear, Mike. Thank you. So we'll be in touch, and let's reconnect again sometime, buddy. Thank you again, Mike.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
And have yourself an awesome night.
I surely will. I hope you do the same. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Take care.
You too.